get my 6. What's up, everybody? Good evening. Welcome back to Homesteading Off the Grid and another video about whatever in the hell this channel's about. All right, so here's what the video is about this evening. Something amazing. We started looking closer at our surroundings and we made an amazing discovery. Here's why I started looking closer. You know, a lot of folks have been asking for follow-up on the video that one of our neighbors gave us about a month or so ago. If I knew any more, I would give the follow-up. So here's what I decided to do today. And I've discovered a couple of amazing things. I'm going to share these amazing discoveries with you here in just a moment. But I thought, whatever these things are here in our vicinity, and probably in the vicinity of most people who just, you know, don't notice things when they go by because they're not looking, I thought, how can they be hiding in plain sight? And should I, you know, here and below my campground, should I just go around through this meadow? Got about a 3-acre meadow back here. Used to be a hay field, but we're letting it reforest, except for our campground here that we keep mowed down, of course. We spend a lot of time up here having campfires. There's our pit, actually camping out at night. But the rest we're letting, you know, grow back into a forest. And we got some trees, for instance, like these trees that are now 20 feet tall. They're in certain patches. We never walk through this meadow. We just don't. No particular reason other than we just stay on the trails, the clearly marked trails. You know, potentially we stay on the clearly marked trails because this may or may not be Bigfoot Sasquatch territory. But I thought, you know, what may or may not be lurking in this meadow unbeknownst to me. So I started prodding around. Just started walking through the meadow, see if I could scare anything up, kind of like rabbit hunting. And let me show you what I found. Okay, I'm going to show you this. Remember, 5 years ago, this was a hayfield. See this locust tree? This sucker is 20 feet tall. But let me show you what I found behind the locust tree. We are ecstatic with this find, and it's only one of several finds. Let me reverse the camera so you can get a better view. All right, so this is one particular area of interest. We've made several videos from here. You can see we've got a security camera here that someone or something continually messes with. And then here's where you enter the forest. Several well-beaten trails coming out of here. And then, of course, way down there's our house. You see the house, the truck. I zoom in. Okay, so, but I've never just taken off trampling through this meadow in the last couple of years. I guess the first couple of years, the fear was I might break a sapling or a seedling that I really wanted to come up to get like 20 feet tall, like these cedars. But today, I spent all afternoon following the trails that may appear to be deer trails, but which may be a trail of something all entirely different. Now watch this. Just come out the trail just a little ways, and I've never noticed this until today. But check this out. Persimmons. This is a very delicious fruit, indigenous to the east coast of the United States. Look at that. Now, they're not ripe. They're green. But they're all over this tree. Everywhere. This is one of my most favorite indigenous fruits. And if I hadn't ventured out into this meadow, I would have never found this persimmon tree. And so I ran down to the house and actually got my wife and told her to come up and look at this. Tried to get my kid to come up. He didn't care. And what we found is we have persimmon trees all over the place, but not all of them are bearing fruit. Of course, there's my nemesis, goldenrod. And I do want to state for the record, a couple people commented in yesterday's video, it's not the goldenrod that we have the allergic reaction to as much as it is the ragweed that grows around the same area. That's what I thought. And for the last couple of years, I always blamed it on the ragweed, but a lot of folks were saying, no, that's the goldenrod. But anyway, this is an interesting area. You see this tall grass? There's always deer bedding around in here. This might be TMI, but this is where our septic station actually pumps up to. And oddly, it's like no trees grow in here, just this grass. I should plant some tomatoes in here. There's some privet. A lot of people don't like that. It's an invasive species from India, but I love it because they make for great privacy hedges. So anyway, I have not walked past this point, okay? So I got the camera. I figured I'm gonna take the camera through here. So if anything jumps out at us, like that freaking weird green thing, whatever that thing was, it looked green to me, that the neighbor got here about a month or so ago. But check this out. Freaking poplar tree, like easily 12 feet tall. All of these trees, this big thicket, we thought these were sourwood, but they're not. They're actually persimmon also. It's got a persimmon thicket that's just not fruiting yet. And wow, there's a cedar tree that's about 10 feet tall. It's amazing. This is like our fantasy coming true. You know, as far as this place reforesting, we'd hope to have some native trees that had some native fruits on them. Got some cedars. Oh, there's a beautiful white pine. Well, doesn't seem to be anything else down here. Let's go check the other part. All right, so watch behind me. See if you see anything as we explore the meadow a little further. I want to clarify something yesterday. I made a really, what would have been a powerful video yesterday about divorce and life choices and getting out of crappy situations. But I left a big hole in the story. I didn't clarify things. Look at this, loblolly pine. It's about 6 feet tall. Beautiful. Man, this meadow had some D-bag when I first started this saying, you can't regrow a meadow into a forest. It'll just never work. He's one of these know-it-alls. Check out my 12-foot tall cherry trees here. Obviously, it's working. So anyway, I was talking about breathing machines and breathing problems, but I never explained why. Well, my wife's sister, I'm not going to say which one, is in such a crappy marriage situation. Her and her husband argue all the time to the point to where she has these anxiety attacks and she can't breathe and she's actually been passing out. And so that was the whole point of that when my wife and I were at the CVS pharmacy and Gary kept seeing these different breathing machines saying, hey, do you think my sister needs this? Do you think my sister needs that for this breathing condition? We got company. Come here, girl. You want to say hi? Say hi. All right, come on, follow me around like you always do. And my point was, no, your sister doesn't need a breathing contraption. Your sister needs a freaking divorce. Wow, here's another one. Check this out. Let me reverse the camera. Okay, so as you can see, we're on the edge of our yard. And look at this, right here. Wow, check it out. Another fruit-bearing persimmon. Now, this grass is up to my chest, these weeds, but the trees, look at these poplars. 8 feet high, this persimmon's 9 feet high. They're finally starting to outgrow the weeds. The trees are finally beating the weeds, and check this out. More persimmon fruit. Check it out, look at that. Man, I'll tell you what, look at that. Let me zoom in. Oh, fruit all over the place. In just a couple more short years, we're going to have more persimmon fruit in here than we can eat. What are you doing, kitty? What are you doing? Okay, so we're going to walk around through the top part of the meadow now. I'm going to follow a deer trail, if I can find one, and see how this goes. See if we can find any more fruit-bearing persimmon trees. Here's our apple trees. It's crazy. I was telling my wife we planted all these fruit trees, and only about, well, this year we had a decent year. About 6 of them bore fruit. We had 3 peach trees, gave us more peaches than we've ever had some pear trees. These are apple trees that so far they're not bearing fruit yet, but maybe next year's the year. But here's my point about that whole situation. I was talking in the video about how I am an adamant supporter of divorce because I am an adamant supporter of removing yourself from unpleasant situations. I know people are like, oh, you heathen, you sound ungodly, supporting divorce, not supposed to do that. Well, you're not supposed to promise to spend the rest of your life with the wrong person to spend the rest of your life with either. And once you realize you've done that and things aren't going too well, what's your options? Well, actually, you have 3. And this isn't just in regard to marriage. This is in regard to any life situation you find yourself in. Jobs, friendships, relationships. Okay, listen, man. I'm almost 50. And I've just become so selective with who I'll spend my time with. I don't care who you are. If you're toxic, you're not allowed in my presence. I don't care who you are. If you're not toxic, we can be best of friends. It's that simple. And here's where I cleared that tree that fell here last week. It took me a while, but I got it out. But listen, I'm going to quote again. It's a philosophy from a Canadian author / life coach, whatever. His name's Eckhart Tolle. Most of you folks have heard of him. Many of you have read his works. He says that when you're in a situation that you're simply not happy with, a situation that makes you miserable, like I used to talk about this when I had a job, when I used to be a mailman, work for the United States Postal Service. That job, I hated it. That job, it made me miserable. And this would be true for the case of my wife's sister, who is so miserable in her marriage, that argues so much, that she now has anxiety attacks that cause her not to be able to breathe to the point to where she passes out. Okay? That's a red light. You've got 3 things you can do anytime you find yourself in an uncomfortable situation. You can change the situation. Okay? As in, whatever whatever is causing the unpleasantness, the suffering, change it, okay? A lot of times, maybe marriage counseling or whatever. Let's go into the woods. Supposed to go through the meadow. I didn't even step foot in there. Let's go in the woods. Okay, you can change it. But what if you're in a situation you can't change? Like, for instance, I certainly wasn't going to be able to change the way the United States Postal Service does business and the way they lay 2.5 days worth of work on every employee in the larger offices every day. Well, okay. So then comes option number 2. Remove yourself from the situation. Leave the situation, which I finally did. I quit that job that I hated, that made me miserable. And my wife's sister, obviously, if she can't change, her husband, she can't change herself to where they can get along to the point to where they're not passing out due to anxiety attacks. Well, then the time has come to leave, okay? Now, what if you can't change it? And what if you can't leave, or if you're unwilling to leave? Well, then comes option number 3, according to Eckhart Tolle. You must accept it. All you can do is accept it. So, when we ask ourselves, do we really want to accept remaining in an environment or a situation in which we're miserable? To me, the answer is simple, because there have been times in my life when I've been miserable for years because I've remained in toxic relationships, or because I've allowed toxic people to continue to enter my presence when I should have set boundaries earlier, boundaries such as not allowing them to enter my presence, but I let it persist, and the misery persisted, the misery remained. I was unwilling personally to accept these situations, so I left them. I went back to option number 2. Here's the deal. If you don't leave it, or if you can't change it, and then if you don't leave it, your only option left is to accept it. And if you are unable to accept the situation in which you are absolutely miserable, get used to the misery, because you're going to be miserable for the rest of your life as long as you remain in that situation. It's as simple as that. That's just a simple fact. And I know firsthand, I'm not going to say how, but I know very much about people who should have been divorced and who didn't get divorced and who have spent decades in misery. And let me tell you this, if you think you're doing the kids a favor by staying together, you're not. You're doing the kids a disservice of showing them what a toxic relationship is like, which unfortunately will be the only form of relationship they know and understand, which unfortunately, again, will probably be the type of relationship they end up in. You've done them no favors by staying together so they can daily witness that toxic relationship where two people who despise each other stay together for the kids. So that was the point I was trying to make in yesterday's video. It's not like this video was a rehash of yesterday's video, but I guess it was because I missed that. This video is really about the amazing discovery I made, by looking closer, paying more attention to detail, and then discovering this. These super, super, super delicious. These are almost ripe. You know what? Here in just about a week or so, this one's going to be ripe, and we're going to test out the upcoming winter prediction based upon cutting this open, splitting the seed in half, and seeing whether or not we have a fork, a spoon, or a knife. Most of you watching know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't, check back in a week or so, and we'll be doing it here. In the meantime, I'm going to go. My kid got a new soccer ball today, and I'm going to go down here and play with that ball until about dark. So thanks for coming back for another episode here of Homesteading Off the Grid and whatever the hell this channel's about. And remember, it might be your job, your relationship, certain friendships. You can either change it, or you can leave it, or you can accept it. Choice is yours. After you make that choice, you'll either experience serenity or misery. It's your call. See you next time.